Roger. He said he got an awful lot of prestige from his kids for that. While he was in the hospital, I took a short, stubby pencil and tablet paper, ruled tablet paper, and I wrote Milkman, semi-illiterate letter, and signed it Roger.
What did the letter say?
Oh, I'm tired to hear about your broken, B-R-O-K-K-A-N, cross out. You're broken, again misspelled, partially erased. Broken spelled correctly. Misspellings and erasures. About your broken bone. Personally, misspelled, I like to eat bones. And as long as your bone is broken, save it for me. Yeah, that letter made the circulation board. You found out about that Roger wrote letters. The milkman. All the time Milkman was in the hospital. And he treasured those letters. Those are all the patients. You'd ask him, hear from Roger today? You see, people waste an awful lot of time. In psychotherapy, you ought to teach people to use their time. You wait a few minutes for a mailman, a few minutes for the grocery, wait a few minutes for a phone call. If you use that time, you could accomplish a lot. A patient a few minutes late, after Roger died, Miss Erickson shed tears over him. A few days later, he got a letter from Ghost Roger in a great boneyard up yonder. He told her all about meeting her ghost dogs of her childhood. Had a lot of fun writing that letter.
You wrote it.
That's a big pencil. You all heard about that religion. Well, Roger has written a few hundred letters to them.
A few hundred?
Yeah. They wasted an awful lot of postage on Roger. He loud as how. He didn't have much money. It's hard to save up on night watch duty. They offered to invest his money for him.
Oh.
They offered to send him to Africa. He could turn over $500, go to Africa, and work as a missionary. They made him a clear and auditor. He worked hard to get his $500. And finally got very insistent on investing his $500. And Roger had to write them a letter and how he got a broke leg out in the hospital and taking all $500. He hoped he wouldn't have to go in debt, D-E-T. He managed to save up more money on a night watchman duty. Arthur had a lot of worries about a night watchman job. He might lose it any time. And he was a fraud. Paid Roger for a sucker. And wanted to invested $500 over in trips to Australia, Europe. As Mrs. Erickson were entertaining herself, she wrote letters for Roger. I like to write letters for Easter Bunny. I play Santa Claus over the phone. I write letters well. And actually called me up and said, a little 6-year-old girl who got very sticky fingers, and she lies like a trooper. You look her in the eye and lie and lie and lie. You stole her mother's jewelry and hid it in her bedroom. Swore she'd never seen that before. You didn't know how you got the hiding place in her bedroom. You went to camping, came back, property belonging to other girls with their names on it. I swore. And her mother bought those smoke glasses and the other things. And what can we do to help that girl get over her lying and her stealing? I said, leave it to me. I wrote the girl a letter. Yes, first time parents what to do. I wrote her a letter. You forget the name. Her name was Heidi. I addressed the letter, Dear Heidi Ho, I am your growing up fairy. Nobody can see their growing up fairy. All children have a growing up fairy, all their own. And I am your 6-year-old growing up fairy. If you'd like to know what I look like, because nobody can see a growing up fairy. I have eyes on top of my head, in front of my head, outside of my head, back of my head, under my head. So I can see everything my growing up child, my growing up 6-year-old child does. And I described how further, I've got 3 left front feet. Middle left front foot has 32 toes. And I can't always remember which toe to put the pencil. That's why my writing is so poor. I've only got 1 right front foot. And that makes me go twice as fast on my left side as on my right side. I only use my middle left front foot for writing. I use the others for walking. And I walk twice as fast on my right side as I do on my left side as I do on my right side. That's why I have 7 hind feet. So I walk chiefly with my feet on the right side of my body so to keep my body in balance. I've got lots of ears. A growing up fairy has to see everything our growing up child does and says. We never tell what we see. We never tell what we know. We just write letters to our growing up children so that they know that we know. I had ears on my cheeks on swivel joints so you could turn around all directions. And down the side of my neck, down both sides of my body, and all down my backbone, clear to the end of my tail. And the tail, the ear on the end of the tail, a very big ear, out swivel joint. We could turn all directions, make sure that nothing that was heard would be overlooked. And told her where I lived. Well, she'd find it by the cactus patch near the mountain. And she would know the cactus patch. The coyotes used to hang out there, hoping to catch me. I had that cactus patch, so I couldn't be caught by coyotes. And I'd hung up some dry rattlesnake skins and rattles to scare away the coyotes. I sent her a recipe for buttermilk and peanut butter pancakes. The letters were delivered in the middle of the night were being dropped on the floor in her bedroom when she was asleep. You know, with a growing up Harry looking at you and listening to you, you better watch your steps. And that cures a little girl. All right, Easter Bunny letters. The children, the show and tell. It keeps up their faith. I have had grown-up patients ask me to write their children Easter Bunny letters by Santa Claus. Growing up Paris. And the kids all like them. They're good public relations too. And you can enjoy it. A sick kid in the hospital receives a letter from Easter Bunny. And you're going to make it a special job of getting a kid a Valentine. Getting the kid a Valentine. The kid has something hopeful to look forward to. And Valentine's always signed by the Easter Bunny.
You said Valentine's. You said Valentine's signed by the Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
What about what you were addressing earlier? Sort of. If somebody's dying and they don't need their energy to, get better, is it? Do they want you there? You know what I mean?
I think the kind of thing cannot gather around and watch the dying person. And that's impressive on a dying person. These are all people I'm going to lose. I always instruct my nurses to try to elicit from the dying patient all the happy reminiscences they could. And I think dying, you can't be certain. Now, I don't think we'll hang around and be morbid, shed tears, make life, whatever life is remaining, unpleasant, unhappy. I want people to tell me jokes. I like to be die with a smile on my face. And like to die thinking about on the Easter Bunny letters I've written various unhappy children.
But say, for instance, if this is really, I guess it really interests me, this whole thing with hospitals, and because I was brought up in a family that is we were taught, you know, you go to the hospital if somebody is there, and if it's somebody close to you, you go every day, and if it's somebody real close to you, you don't leave the hospital, you know, and it's real strong. And
it's a chore, you feel it, and patient feels it.
But if it isn't a chore,
But
well, it depends. You know, like when my ex-husband was in the hospital, I wanted to be there every day.
You said had first.
But I really do think I wanted to be there. I felt misplaced if I wasn't with him. And that was over a long period of time, you know, when he was in the hospital. But
I told a lot of different relatives. I think the sick person would benefit more from a happy letter.
The sick person can benefit more from a happy letter.
it's probably true, but you wandering in a hospital or something, and you see these people.
The hospital reminds you of death everywhere.
Huh?
Hospitals remind you of death and pain.
Hospitals remind you of death and pain.
Remember, I was an intern once. Hospital staff man.
Right.
Huh?
Hospital staff man. I looked around. I persuaded a lot of relatives and paid their visits, either necessary and special delivery letters. Now, when my wife writes to various children, almost all of it includes clippings. You remember the Russian satellite that came to Earth from northern Canada? You remember about that? Mm-hmm. And the search that was made. Mm-hmm. One of the boys, the young man found that Russian satellite. He sent our daughter Roxana a clipping and said, "See what you've done for the world." That young man had been working out physically. He knew he wanted to go up in the north and learn to endure hardship. And our Roxanne and some friends, one evening we're climbing Squaw Peak. Starting out to climb Squaw Peak. This young man joined the group, and he suggested that Roxy ride piggyback all the way up to the top of Squaw Peak. Her reaction was, a young man is foolish enough ask a young college girl riding piggyback up to Squaw Peak has asked for trouble. I'm willing to give it to him. And he rode up, piggyback, all the way to the top of the coffee. He was actually training to endure hardship, build up his strength. And it was he who discovered that fallen Russian satellite. So we sent a story of the man who carried a piggyback up Squaw Peak. And we're always saving cartoons to send to various members of the family.
You talked about having dyslexia, and my children have dyslexia, and my children have dyslexia. And you said something about having dyslexia, and I was wondering if you have any more ideas.
My son Alan had dyslexia. And his teachers went, wow, we're selling. Girl, Grille. Very appropriate, Miss Sally. He's also a mathematician. For the age of 3, he developed a magnificent project. Iron picket fence around the hospital ground. And he set out to count the pickets. Over 8,000. At first he marked where he left off to come in for lunch by laying a stone. Jason and I would pick up the stone, throw it away, have to start all over again. One day he saw me riding on a blackboard of chalk. Thereafter he carried a piece of chalk and put a secret mark on a picket. He could always start at where he left off. And when he got them all counted, he got made a mistake, so he counted backwards. He got the same number. And he told his older brother, I didn't count to 100. And Brother picked up and said, when I was loud, condescending, I said, of course you can. Got it, made him indignant. We insisted on counting to 100 by 1s, by 2s, by 5s, by 10s. And with roguish look, he said, I didn't count backward too. And Mother had enough of that. I always brought home various types of mathematical puzzles and leave them lying on my desk. A small boy, very adventurous. He always discovered those mathematical puzzles. And he solved them. In the 6th grade, he came to me in distress. He said, I've been working my arithmetic with a slide rule. Well, it's a toy. It's something for little kids. I want to do my arithmetic the hard way. And well, I can't help you. I remembered how the engineers, students in college cursed their slide rules. They were so hard to learn to work. Here he was calling it a child's toy. I sat him down at the library and there's lots of books there. And you can find some book on mathematics. That'll interest you. He found a book. And his teacher said, Alan, I don't know how you work your arithmetic. He always get the right answer. He was using logarithms. And I don't know how to use it.
In the 6th grade?
In 6th grade.
11
And he's the SOB. Save our beat. He always sends his mother a lot of clippings. Every letter. And she sends him a lot of clippings. He's always got a pile of clippings. He'll answer us Robert, or Roxana, or Bert. I'll to give you Bert's recipe for longevity. It's very simple. Always be sure to get up in the morning. Or to be sure of getting up in the morning, drink a lot of water before you go to bed. Writing letters is one thing, including clippings. You send those to patients in the hospital. And not only if you wrote them a duty letter, and you went far beyond duty, including a clipping or a cartoon that would appeal to them.
I don't think I could not visit somebody.
Just sending flowers is one thing. I send a clipping that explains some rare and unusual plant that can be grown here. Arizona, many people have never seen snow. 80, 90 years old. They've never seen snow. And send them a snapshot of you staying near a snowdrift 20 feet high. Write readings to them in the snowdrift. Send them a snapshot. That means far more than a letter than a visit. Something they can pick up, enjoy now, tomorrow, they get sent around the world. Everybody enjoys. Emphasize the positive, eliminate the negative. Another popular song I use with patients is toe bones connecting foot bone, heel bone, ankle bone. And I get through reciting all the connections. Then they can see the connection in their neurosis and a lot of other things about them.
Could you repeat that? Could you repeat that?
Then you go through that song about toe bone connecting foot bone, heel bone, ankle bone, leg bone. You go through that, and you can get them to believe that their neurosis is not an alien thing that's affecting them, as a part of them. And they can do things with their arms and their legs, and maybe they can do things with their neurosis. It gives them a lot of hope. I know Mark Spitz was in the hospital, something wrong with him. He was a friend of mine. I sent him a copy of the song fishes swimming. Oh, don't you know that popular side? Free little fishes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I would remind him of things, you know, in his own life experience.
Mm-hmm. It's too early. It's too early for you.
I have actually, it's a client that I've been seeing. I wonder if I could ask your advice on that.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is a very interesting young woman of 32 who spent most of her childhood taking care of her younger brothers and never felt that she really lived her adolescence. Her mother was left by her father, and this woman, my client, was about 12 or 13. The mother then remarried to a man who was very strict with the children, and my client, whose name is Kathy, became the babysitter. And the mother and stepfather would go out all the time and say, you stay home and take care of your brothers. So she built up a lot of anger around that, and finally she used to fight with her mother a lot. She finally left home at the age of right after high school, and she married a man who she loved very much and trusted totally, gave her entire self over to him. And he was very critical, and whenever he'd say, you know, you did this wrong, she would believe it 100%. And she gave up her power over the next 5 years so that whatever he said, she believed. And she lost faith in herself and her own abilities to do anything. And in that course of time, she had 2 children who are now a girl who's 13, starting her adolescence, and a boy who's 10. And they're lovely children in many ways. They have problems, but they have turned out basically okay. But I am now seeing her with her own mother. And what seems to be happening is that she has never, since the marriage to this man, and when she gave up her power, she doesn't feel that she has the right to be angry at anyone, including her mother, for all the babysitting and all that. She feels like she's not a real mother to her children. She feels like she's still the babysitter. And she doesn't really want them, but she has a very strong moral sense that I am the mother, and that's the most important thing. I have to do it out of guilt. I have to take care of these children. I have to sacrifice myself for them. Okay, I feel like there's a certain moral dilemma. She's a very highly moral person, and she found out that her mother, who brought her up to be very moral, was in fact not so moral herself. And this was a horrendous thing for her to hear. She hates her mother for being such a hypocrite. Well, okay, in the last session that I saw her and her mother, she started to talk about an incident that had happened of a sexual transgression of her own that she did in adolescence. And she started to say it, and then she wouldn't say it. She said, no, if I say that, I'll start crying and I'll never stop. She feels that she has committed this sin. And so I was encouraging her to say it, and she was almost begging me not to make her say it. And but I just felt like this was the crux of what was going on with her, but I didn't want to push her into anything. So she started to cry. She got real upset. She said, I have to go. She hugged me. She hugged her mother, and she left. And she's not a very physical person. She'd never hugged me before in all the time I had known her. And she said, I'll call you tomorrow and make an appointment. And then she didn't call that day, and then I left to come down here. And I just feel that this is a very important time in the therapy, and I want to be real careful what I do. And so I thought I'd ask your help.
If you wanted to cry, I would have seen to it that she cried.
She did cry.
I've always had my office in my home until I moved here in 1970. I thought then I was through seeing patients. When patients are on the verge of tears, I'd go out in the other room, get a flower pot with a house plant in it, and say, if you like crying, I'll save me watering this plant. And tears are useful. Now, actually, when the patient starts crying, they build up additional shame for themselves because they are crying. Present them a flower pot, and the whole complexion of the situation becomes changed. Now, my children, the children fight, get resentful. You keep in touch with your children, you know about the internecine wars going on. And I told all my children white tummy stories. Oh, a little green frog or a green bag, a white tummy, because he had a white tummy. And a green bag, he's called white tummy. And white tummy got angry at old Snapper, a snapping turtle. You know, Snapper wanted to eat him. I thought he had some fun with Snapper. And got on a lily pad. And he reached down his front leg and showed it to Snapper and jerked it back. Snapper looked all around for that magical frog leg was out of sight. Couldn't find it anywhere. And white tummy would tease Snapper and little Snapper. Swam away in disgust, defeated. The child identified with white tummy who had whipped older brother. The Snapper was older and bigger than white tummy. The white tummy had teased Snapper until Snapper just gave up, ran away. He decided children dream. Well, my second son, I came on morning and said, Daddy, you should have put Bert. You shouldn't have used a baseball bat. He and Bert had quarreled the night before. In a dream that night, he had Bert punished with a baseball bat. And in the morning, he told me, Daddy, you shouldn't have used a baseball bat. And I took over and put it what side stick should I have used. And he talked it over. He finally decided a few light touches with a twig would have been enough punishment. And that solved the quarrel between him and Bert. I know all the white dummy-stories, always each one demanded a different kind of white dummy story. It kept me very busy inventing a different variety of white dummy stories. Mathematician wanted white dummy stories, constitute a mathematical problem. Betty Ellis always had a white dummy traveling. She taught school in Michigan, Arizona, Okinawa, Australia, Ethiopia. And she's been all over the Orient, all over Europe. And she plans to visit South America, Easter Islands, and so on. And her white dummy stories are always traveling. And now and then she had me tell a special story in which a big brother frog got punished. And fantasy life is very important. He had a imaginary companion. I think she called him Igloo. He used to serve tea to Igloo and herself. And a little table, little chair. Igloo sat in one and served tea, cakes, imaginary cookies, and so on. One day, we saw her apparently carrying something by her hand and walking very sadly to the bathroom. Waited until she returned, tears in her eyes. Asked her what the trouble was. Yeah, I'm a big girl now. So I flushed Igloo down the toilet. You grow up with your children.
Right, you grow up with your children.
And you learn those lessons. And then you recognize grown-up people are only small children grown taller. And make pancakes in the shape of men and women, small children. And make them in the shape of dogs and cows and cats. It tastes much better that way. I moved to Phoenix, our old home on Cypress Street, in an old established neighborhood, a lot of kids. Roxy and Christina were born there. As soon as they were old enough to go to kindergarten, they ruined neighborhood children. The mothers of neighborhood children have taught their kids to sit, look at the boob tube out of their way. Their kids are watching boob tube. I try to refuse to get TV, and soon my 2 dogs and all kids in the neighborhood in the backyard playing games that they invented and ruined it for the other mothers. They always find their kids in my backyard or in my house. And a sense of humor can be taught children. And children will say ridiculous things, and parents will correct them. This is recognizing a child has said something that can be used and developed for a child's satisfaction. Now, Betty Alice had 3-year-old Roxy and 18-month-old Christina out in the front yard playing. And an old maid, 6 feet tall, with his corkscrew curls hanging down, came mincing down the side of these tiny little steps. And she stopped to look at the 2 little girls and said, "Oh, you darling little cherubs, you dear sweet children, say something to me." And Roxy's only too ready to please. She'd learned a new phrase. So she said, "Throw you in the garbage pail." Homemade right now. And then bent over Christina, patted her gently on the head and said, "Say something to me, you sweet, darling, beautiful little child." And Christina said, "Don't hit me on the head, it's breakable." And when Robert came home from the hospital, a new patient came in. So I'm lying on the couch in a body cast and looked with wonderment. And Robert said, "I'm fragile." You teach humor to your kids right away. Yeah, it comes in very handy. The Air Force started a new project. They're going to take all the high school dropouts on Kadena Air Base and have them complete their high school work. Now, people with any acquaintance with military family children know that they have no home base, all being dragged from one place to another. And their fathers are opposite. And military police don't want to get in bed with the officers. And civilian police know they have to turn delinquents over to the military police. So, high school dropout, military base, is really a delinquent. And the Air Force started a campaign. Instead of school, the high school dropouts. At Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, there are 23 high school dropouts, all of the children of officers. And they all had police records. Arrested for heroin, pushing, selling, rape, burglary, robbery, shoplifting, so on. Of course, the civilian police arrested them, turned them over to military police. Military police knew a hot potato, saw one, so they dropped it. And kids got away with murder. The Air Force decided to establish a school. And they selected Betty Alice to run the school. And they turned over a building with a kitchen to her. Of course, all the dropouts showed up first day to see what old lady Elliot, first time my daughter never heard herself described as an old lady. And Betty Alice gave the opening speech, in which he said, "This building is our school, the kitchen's our kitchen, and I only teach here. And nobody interferes with my teaching. If they try, I will expel them for a day, a week, or permanently. And you kids run the discipline of this school. That's your problem. I only teach here." First time in their lives those kids had ever been given any real responsibility. And this is one of the things that happened. On opening day, the second semester, is registration and general get-together and socializing. And 2 new dropouts, newly assigned officers, kids, inspected school, and Tom said to Stanley, "Stan, you lock me in the refrigerator and take all the shelves out. You lock me in the refrigerator for 2 minutes. And you open it, let me out. I'll have a high on by that time. I'll sing around enjoying my new high. As I recover from it, lock me in again. For 2 minutes, I'll get another high on. And all the students are watching. So was my daughter. My daughter knew she couldn't allow that to go on. How do you interfere when the kids are in charge of the discipline? All of a sudden, she got a bright idea. She turned to George, who was in charge of the kitchen. He said, "George, you going to let those 2 bums mess up your kitchen?" He said, "I sure ain't. Hi, fellas, let's straighten out these 2 bums." And all the others rushed to take George's kitchen. And Sam and Tom got straightened out. Now, first year, the school was been going for a week or so. Word came around, a general was coming to inspect the school. So 2 of the boys wrote on something on a blackboard in huge letters. The whole school sat back, waiting to see what Betty Alice would do. And the general entered the room. Betty Alice kept his eyes fixed on her, or looking where she wanted him to look. She led him around the room twice. keeping his eyes on her or where she wanted him to look. After the general gave a complimentary speech and departed, and Susan said, "What are you going to do about that?" He said, "I'm the teacher. That's your problem." And the home by Susan said, "Dick and Joe, erase that blackboard." He didn't have discipline then. She only taught that. And she completed 2 full years. And she's remained on top. She couldn't teach all the classes. Wasn't qualified. And he's a head teacher. And he got volunteers to assist her. Volunteers only taught, that's all. Had nothing to do with discipline. And every time a volunteer ran into difficulty, they all turned it over to the student body. And they all took part. Probably a very successful pilot project. The first year, a boy with the longest arrests, including rape, use of deadly weapons, an attempt to commit murder, grand theft, petty theft, shoplifting, misdemeanors of all kinds, and arrested 40, 50 times. At the end of the year, he had responded so well that he had completed his high school work and decided that he'd go back to the States and enter junior college. A whole school accompanied him to the airport. At the airport, he put his arms around my daughter, kissed her, and cried. And the other students started hooting at him for crying and hugging those things called a girl. And he released Betty out, turned to them and said, "I'm bigger than any of you. I'm stronger." And the next guy that starts hooting at me because I'm crying because I'm losing my best friend and better look out. And I returned, hugged my daughter, kissed her. They both cried together. And the rest of the students were duly respectful. Yeah, he had been considered an absolutely total loss. But how many people always do the unexpected thing? One of my students, less than 5 feet tall, told me her experience. She had a puppy dachshund on a leash out taking for a walk one evening. A great big German Shepherd came down the alley, swearing at both of them and threatening them with mayhem and death. She was so frightened she gathered up her little puppy in her arm, and she started chasing the German Shepherd and yelling at him. And the German Shepherd knew that's an inhuman thing to do. I better not tangle anything that inhuman. So he went home kayaking. And my daughter Roxana was riding on her bicycle in the desert, and a wild German shepherd came charging toward her. Leaped off her bicycle, picked up a rock, assumed a very threatening posture. The German shepherd knew that wasn't human. I saw some business he had elsewhere. All my children taught do the unexpected thing. And you can meet any situation. People always know what to expect, and they know what you're going to do. You know that you're going to follow the usual constricted behavior. If you do the totally unexpected thing, unprepared. Betty else got a first teaching job. And a few days she learned it was not replacing the former teacher. A previous semester, one of the delinquent 15-year-old boys out of the class he was teaching who were attending school waiting for his 16th birthday had walked up to the previous semester teacher and said, "Miss Johnson, what would you do if I slammed you? He was 6 feet, 2 inches tall, weighed 220 pounds. Even though he was 15, his record showed he'd beaten up, and 2 separate occasions, a policeman. He had a long list of arrests, and he, instead of giving the wrong answer, picked up and slammed her across the room, put her in the hospital. And of course, I had my daughter's hand contact and take long for her to find out that he was replacing that teacher. Her first thought, she told me later, was, I found out the situation I was in. He was 6 feet 2 inches tall and 220 pounds. I'm 5 feet 2 inches. I weighed 102 pounds. I knew it wouldn't be long before he approached me. I'm riding on a bikeboard one day. Room became abnormally silent. I turned, here's a great big giant, nasty smirk on his face, tiptoeing up to the front of the room. He stopped 2 short steps from me. I was wearing my wondering look, my big blue eyes wide open, and said, Miss Erickson, what do you do if I slammed you? So I narrowed my eyes, took 2 quick steps toward him, and snarled, so help me God, I'll kill you. Now get over there and sit down at that desk. Right away, now! He never heard a kitten snarl like a tiger before. He sat down. He says, one can watch the expression on his face. He suddenly realized she had faced him down. He was the biggest kid in school, and he knew he'd have to defend her the rest of the year. The thing was, when you reached his 16th birthday, but he liked school, and he liked Betty hours, and he finished up the year and went on to school. He kept in correspondence with Betty hours for several years because he, in doing the unexpected thing, won his respect. I met a teacher in Kansas, a man, who was telling me, a psychologist, told me he wanted to be a teacher and found it boring. He decided to go into psychology. I asked him why he found teaching boring. He said, well, under 5 feet. And so they assigned me to teach the delinquent population. I was just attending school until I reached our 16th birthday. And those delinquent kids were a pain in the neck. They were always trying to take advantage of me until I caught on. Saying doorway, and one of those giants leaned heavily on me and said, someday, a little teacher's going to find himself a grease spot on the floor. I turned to him and said, and someday, some great big bruiser is going to find his throat. His teeth ran down his throat. I never had any trouble after that. And that led me to take up psychology. Why did that sudden reversal of roles bring me respect? And nothing else brought respect. I went into psychology. People will think and feel the way you want them to if you react in the right way. It's easy enough to go out and get a patient to cry. I think it's better to get them to laugh. And you think it's wrong, you induce a dying patient to laugh. Society does. You shouldn't do that. You should be hypocritical, sympathetic, mortician behavior. Call it a slumber room, a room of peace. And not go in and tell a dying patient a towering story or elicit laughter and unseemly behavior. I prefer to have my patient die laughing than crying. Now, I think I'll tell you a story of another patient I had. Yes, a certain background, I should tell you first. He was a classmate of mine in medical school. And George was very shy, very timid young man, very courteous, very studious, and awfully shy. And he couldn't talk back to anybody. And so he kept himself pretty well withdrawn. And one day in physiology class, And Dr. Meek divided us into groups of 4. I was in the group with George, and Dr. Meek passed out rabbits, 1 to each group. He said, "You're to do these procedures." I've forgotten what they were. And any rabbit died, or on a 0 for the group handled that rabbit. And our rabbit carefully, but he died. And Dr. Meek looked at our dead rabbit and said, "Sorry, boy, it's 0 for all of you." I said, "You're wrong, Dr. Meek. The autopsy has not been done." He said, "For knowing that an autopsy should be done in an unexpected death, I'll give you boys a grade of 50. He did the autopsy, called Dr. Meek to examine the autopsy findings. He took one look and said, "That rabbit didn't have the right to be alive when he came to the laboratory. He died of pericarditis, massive pericarditis. And that, of course, was the cause of death. You boys get an A."
Wow.
George never forgot that. And some 20 years after he'd gone in practice, came to Phoenix, bought a house and lot, out consoling his wife and daughter, and came to me, asked me if I'd take him as a patient. And he said, "You're the only one I would trust. And that's because of the way you handled Dr. Meek. You weren't afraid to talk back to him and get us our rights. I would have taken a 0. Because of the way you reacted, I got an A." And George prided himself on getting A's in college. And then he told me his story. I am still a medical student. He got secretly married to a girl who had parents like his. And neither of them dared to tell their parents that they were married. Both sets of parents lived in Milwaukee. Every weekend, George had to go from Madison to Milwaukee to please his parents. And a child, they owned a huge yard in Milwaukee. As a child, it was his duty to dig up dandelions from the lawn. They paid him a nickel for every bushel basketful. And he would work very hard. Finally, he pegged down a whole bushel full of dandelions. And his mother or his father would come out and he'd trample down that bushel basket. And our weight would reduce it to half full. And George was painful to get it packed down till it was full. And then his parents would come and travel it down some more. And finally, when we couldn't travel it down at all, they would give George a nickel. His father was independently wealthy, so was his mother. And George was a very good boy. He was afraid of his parents. He never offended them. He felt very guilty about getting married, not daring to tell his parents. And his wife felt very guilty because she had similar parents. They died, both died, and left wife, independently wealthy. And George's father died of cancer suddenly, and left George independently wealthy. And George and his orphaned wife got enough courage to tell George's mother that they were married. And she made them think that getting married was the worst thing either could have done. And she humiliated both of them, and they both took it. And when George finished his internship, and he would say where he ought to practice medicine, his mother had called him every week to get a report on his internship. And he hadn't discussed where he's going to practice. He was trying to figure out where. He got a phone call from his mother telling him, "I've purchased a practice for you in a suburb of Milwaukee. And I've hired a nurse to run your office." And George described the nurse. He was one of these ultra competent person. He ran the office correctly and fully. And George had no rights at all. He gave patients appointments. George could do the medical history, the physical examination, do the diagnosis, write the prescription. A nurse explained the prescription to the patient and gave the patient a second appointment if she thought it were necessary. George had nothing to say about it. All he did was medical histories, physicals, diagnoses, write prescriptions. It was almost as if he were working for his mother. His mother called him up at least every day for a report on how things went that day. And at least once a week he had to write her a 10-page letter summarizing the week. And George reacted like a little frightened child. He kept 4 suits in his office, and he would wet his pants during the day. And often he had to use all 4 suits and the one he was wearing to get through the day. And his wife liked to entertain. And George would come home, there'd be a house full of people, walk right, say, looking neither right nor left. Go down the basement. I grew orchids. That's his hobby. And he knew orchids about 1,000. He went to the office at 7 in the morning and almost stayed until 11 at night, keeping up with the medical literature. He was an extremely competent general practitioner. When he was in Phoenix, I had him as my family doctor. And George often entered the office early so he wouldn't awaken his wife and daughter. And he'd take breakfast on the way, because he ate lunch in a restaurant. And behavior in a restaurant was very peculiar. He couldn't stand a restaurant with female waitresses. A waitress he wanted to avoid. He had to eat Russian for the only male waiters. And he'd go in and order mashed potatoes. Eat them hurriedly, rush out, go in another Russian, order a pork chop. Eat it hurriedly, rush out, go in another Russian, order a vegetable, bread and butter, and maybe a glass of milk. And if you wanted dessert, you go to another all-male waiter, Russian, to order ice cream or cake or pie. It usually took 3 to 4 Russians. Or breakfast or lunch. Breakfast, you order bacon, eat it hurriedly, go elsewhere, eat an egg hurriedly, go another place, eat toast hurriedly, go another place and drink a cup of coffee. And George always did his own shopping for shirts, suits, shoes. He'd walk in the store and say, I'll take that shirt, send it COD. Got home, he'd have a leg band, see what size it was. The right size, he'd keep it. Wrong size, he'd return it and order that one and rush out. And shopping for a shirt often involved a dozen shirts before he got the right size. He bought a suit the same way. I'll take that suit COD. At home, he'd try it on. It didn't fit, he'd return it. I'll take that one. Getting a suit that fit. A difficult job. And getting a pair of shoes that fit. I'll take that pair. Time at home. His wife was very miserable. His mother had a cabin on the lake. He told George when he and his wife and daughter should take a vacation. And she bought a cabin next to hers. Early in the morning, she'd go over to his cabin, tell his wife what to cook for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Told George what days he could go swimming, what days he could go canoeing, what days he could go sailing, what days he could go fishing. He really ran that summer camp completely. And George was always the obedient son, and his wife was the obedient daughter. Told George I had to get the rest of his history from his wife and daughter. They both confirmed George's story and added, the daughter added that in her 21 years of life, her father had never once kissed her, hugged her, or given her a birthday present or a birthday card. Had never had a Thanksgiving dinner. Her mother had to take her out to a restaurant for a Thanksgiving dinner. Never had a Christmas tree or a Christmas present. At Christmas time, George would go to Sun Valley with the family, rent one of the outlying cabins, and have the grocer send in a supply of food. Early in the morning, George would go out skiing in some remote area. Dollar and George's wife skied where other people skied. And George would return after dark and have a meal at home. And either he prepared or his wife prepared. His wife and daughter ate with the other guests at Sun Valley. And George liked skiing very much. And George also played the cello. He's an ex-player of the cello. And he always played in his own bedroom, the door locked. Wife and daughter had to listen to the door through the pillow. He wouldn't play in front of them. I'm left out a lot of details. They're all limiting. I told George, well, it's a matter of wetting your pants. And this deadline business memory of yours be cured. That's the first thing you'll do. I'm very worried about pussy and cure. I told his wife to get a trowel for digging up dandelions, bushel basket. Her old black trousers. And make 2 gallons of lemonade and get a supply of salt pills. I gave George his orders. Tomorrow I want you to go out on the lawn, sit down on the grass near a trowel and dig up dandelions. I visited your home and lot in Phoenix. And lots and lots of dandelions there. That place has been neglected so far as dandelions are concerned. You sit down and eat in the morning on the lawn. And your wife will bring you lemonade. You have a supply of salt pills with you. You sit there from 8 in the morning till 6 at night. And you don't get up. And you drink the lemonade. You know, you have to urinate in your pants. Passers-by are very friendly. Phoenix was a small town then. It was often checked with doors. At first he was only mobile. They went by, began talking. Then realizing nobody could see his black trousers were wet. And dug dandelions all day. And wet his pants all day. 2 gallons of lemonade. Sure guarantee. And the next day, George got another old pair of trousers, took his trowel, went over to the neighbors, digged dandelions, and when he had to urinate, he went home and used the bathroom. So he's really cured. Got the last case of wet pants in his life. And he was amused at the enjoyment he got out of digging dandelions and not wetting his pants and drinking lemonade and knowing he was free to quit at any time. And after that was done, I told George, on next Tuesday morning, we're going shopping. And I have to come and pick you up. You show up at the office. I'm driving the car. And he showed up looking very unhappy. I drove down to a woman's store. As we entered, a very pretty clerk. One of the outgoing sociable personalities. Our son said, "Who's your doctor?" I recognized a limp. "And you must be Dr. K." He linked her arm found is that, of course, you want to buy something for your wife and daughter. And George found himself in a horrendous situation. That girl wanted to sell him hosiery, panties, slips, bra. And he was so friendly and so agreeable and so free. He gave a long song and dance on one was wearing black lace panties. And she insisted he look at hers, all up her skirt so he could see how pretty her black lace panties were. Hers had a hard time looking. I found it very easy. He offered a model bra, different size, show how you measured a breast to fit a bra. And George bought a lot of bras, a lot of panties, a lot of slips, bathrobes. In 1950, $200 or $300 worth of underthings and a lot of material. He had a gift driver sent to his home. Wife and daughter examined them, found only a few pieces they could wear, only out of the wrong side. There's some of the Goodwill and Salvation Army, and they went downtown and bought the things they could wear. George didn't know that. He thought his wife and daughter were wearing the panties and bras he picked out. And I told George, your next lesson is this. It was very nice of you and your wife to invite Mrs. Erickson and me out to dinner at Newton's primary. I'll drive the car. On the way to the Newton primary, I said, there's two ways of entering, the front way or the back way. And I expected George chose the back way. We entered. A very pretty, sociable waitress ran up and said, good evening, Dr. Erickson. And you must be Dr. K. He helped me open his coat and took him by the arm, led him to a table, and helped seat him at the table. And she certainly was friendly. She's obviously an old friend of George's. She had lots to say to him. And every time George grunted and said, I didn't understand, would say it louder. Oh, poor George. He couldn't be impolite. He had to be polite. And so he would repeat. And she said, Mrs. Erickson, George's wife and daughter. No, George's wife only. Miss Erickson and I found our seats with great ease. She went to get the waitress went to get salads. And George discovered a clock on the wall. Kept looking like what? A whole half hour passed. The waitress hadn't shown up. About 5 minutes later, he showed up with 4 trays of salads. He asked George for salad he wanted, that one. He didn't even look. Now, will you please look? He very carefully told him everything in the salad. asked him if he liked it. Then George said, I'll take it. He said, you haven't looked at the other solids yet. George had to examine all 4 solids. Of course, he said, I'll take the glasses. He said, no, you're making your mind too fast. Let's go through the solids again. He walked him through, talking sociably, telling little jokes. He had no interest in the other 3 of us. That's George. Finally, George got a salad. And she said, which dressing? She had 4 dressings there. George said, that one. Would you have him ask about the other dressings? She walked him through the dressing twice. Yeah, and I was waiting. He's outside for half an hour. And he finally came with the menu. His wife and my wife and I had no difficulty choosing our dinner. Now she helped him choose different kinds of meat. He finally settled on prime rib of beef. Started heaving a sigh of relief. Milton pushed came up very well done, being well done, just plain well done. Slightly rare, medium rare, very rare. And he forced George to make a choice. And it came a potato. Got a lot of different kinds of preparation of potatoes. And George finally managed to say baked potato. And she wanted to know which better, the sour cream, the side, all 3. And it made poor George decide. As for the vegetable, different vegetables, different kinds of buns and rolls and bread. It was an awfully difficult decision. And she happily and joyously helped him decide. It was a long, painful process for George. And then as he ate his prime rib, he stood over him, inquired about roast prime rib, and pointed out, you ought to taste that next, you ought to take some vegetables next, you could come by your roll. Supervision to the extreme. It says friendly, sociable supervision. And then there's dessert. Do you know how many kinds of ice cream there are? How many kinds of pies, cakes, a la mode, which of the 24 varieties of ice cream. George went through absolute hell. And finally, dinner was eaten. I heaved a sigh of relief. The waitress said, did you like your dinner very much? I didn't hear. I liked it very much. Did you like it very, very much? I knew you better say you did. I liked it very, very much. Did you like it very, very, very much? And George said, I liked it very, very, very much. She said, I'm so glad. It's a rule in this restaurant. Any patron likes it very, very, very much. Has to kiss the chef. He's short, black, and fat. And she sweats a lot in the kitchen. There are two ways to go to the kitchen. Front way, through a little door, in back. Now if we go by way of the tunnel, maybe you won't have to kiss the chef. Maybe you'll need somebody else. Very coy. George looks hopelessly at me. He saw no sympathy in my eyes. Besides, even said, I'll go the back way. And thank you so much for being willing to go the back way. Your willingness is enough. He helped me on with his coat. Said a very fond goodbye to him. I did him back. Short drive home. I was very silent. Betty and his wife were talking. He got out of George's house. Betty and I came home. And the next night, I took his wife and daughter to the Newton private room. Went in the front door. Only I didn't expect. A waitress saw him come in. He spoke to the manager. He gave her permission to wait on George and his wife. And she was an absolutely perfectly behaved waitress. After that, George could take his wife out to dinner anytime, anywhere. He lived through a horrible experience with me. We knew his ability to survive. And George, George, you've never shown your wife a sunrise. Next Sunday, I'll take you out to see a sunrise. I like to go out in the desert for a drive on Sunday morning, starting at 3 a.m. That way you can see the wild animals, get the breezes and the quiet. I picked up George and his wife at 3 a.m. I drove around the desert and finally picked a place where they could see the sunrise. And George was pleased with it, so was his wife. George never waited for me to take him out for a sunset. He did that the same day. He learned rapidly what he said. I told George, your wife and daughter are getting bored. And the time passed down by dancing on the kitchen floor. My wife would really like to go to the crow dance. George said, I don't know how to dance. I said, that's all right. I know at least a dozen pretty girls that would like to teach you. George said, my wife can teach you. So we went to a square dance. And Laura taught him how to square dance. And George began liking it. And I began going to every square dance. A number of square dance clubs all have different nights. And George asked me permission to call square dances. He still could function on his own. I gave him permission, and George took up square dance calling I enjoyed it very much. And then one of the dancers gave the theater play, and George volunteered for a part, and he performed his play very adequately. And George even sent me through the mail a picture postcard that showed the homemade variety of privileges. One named Cowbells, the other Cowboys, and a big separate jar, risque postcard for the mail. And then George volunteered he'd like to learn round dancing. And so was his wife answers. I joined round dance clubs, and they danced every evening. I told George, your mother calls you up, or a 2-hour chat, twice a week. I know how you're getting along. You always answer a phone call. You also write a 10-page letter to your mother every week. And you're old enough to refuse to do that for your mother. And so I'm going to cut the umbilical cord. And you buy a picnic table. I want 2 whiskey bottles. One empty with a very lurid label. And one half full with another label, rather lurid. And then I want you to get a straw hat. Then I want you to take all your clothes except your shorts. You sit in a chair, your bare feet on the picnic table. The empty whiskey bottle will be lying on the side, the label visible, and the other whiskey bottle will be plainly visible and full, and half full. And your wife will put bruises on your nose and your cheeks. And you can get a bleary look in your eyes. And you sit there, feeling they were lounging in the chair, looking as drunk as can be. You send that picture to your mother, no explanation. Your mother belonged to Women's Christian Union, Temperance Union. He abhors alcohol. You see a nice picture of you thoroughly drunk? It'll do our soul a lot of good. George never heard from his mother again. And the bi-weekly phone calls and that weekly letter. George even wrote and told her, honey, he and his wife and daughter would be at the lake. His mother didn't show up. And George and his wife and daughter enjoyed that vacation trip. It stayed a month. Then at Christmas time, he never given his wife and daughter a Christmas present, a birthday present. I told his wife, I don't want to go through the hassle of buying a Christmas tree or Christmas gifts. You and your daughter buy the things you want, have a gift wrap.
It's been awful to listen to that story about George. It's been painful.
Why painful?
Why? Well, I feel restricted and
refined and obsessed and painful like that.
I felt sorry for George. I felt no sympathy for his mother.
Yes.
I gave George the opportunity to dine in a restaurant, buy clothes, see the sunrise, and dance, the call dances, around dance, to divorce a hag of a mother, preaching my wedding advance, and a lot of psychological surgery. Now, Christmas, Laura bought the tree and decorated and bought the presents and gift wrapped and told her how to arrange it. And George, then Betty, and my oldest son and I went over Christmas Eve. George and Laura and Carol were waiting. They knew I was coming over. I arrived, I said, George, people have various traditions about Christmas. Some, like the tradition of opening our gifts on Christmas Eve. Some like opening them on Christmas Day. Erickson tradition is on Christmas Day. Since you have no tradition, you'll start yours on Christmas Eve. Now, a proper way to give a present, George, is you pick it up on a tree, you address the recipient by name, wish the recipient a Merry Christmas, and if it's a girl, you give her a kiss. When George picked the first gift, Mama or Carol, the person gave her a peck on the cheek. I said, Carol, if Father give you that present properly. He said he did not. He said, put it back on the tree. Now what shall we do about this, Carol? He said, we better give him a demonstration of how we should give a gift. And that's why I brought my older son-in-law. He's your age. He's really good looking. You can choose between him and me. He said, I choose you, Dr. Erickson. I said, all right. I picked up a gift for her. And Merry Christmas, Carol, handed it to her. And threw her arm around, gave me a 10-minute clinger. And she finally released me. She said, Daddy, you didn't look. Now I have to do it all over again. And George looked that time. And Carol sat down on her present. And George stepped up and gave the second present. I was addressed to his wife. And here George saw his wife looking at me, looking at my son. He stepped up to her and said, Merry Christmas, Laura, and kissed her on the mouth. You learn rapidly. And so, it was a very happy Christmas Eve. And then, sometime later, Carol came in to me and said, Daddy has always gone to weddings in the families of his patients. And he's always disgraced himself as part of the wedding. And he cries so loudly. He bawls like a calf. I'm going to have a church wedding. A wedding reception in the churchyard. And I don't want Daddy spoiling it. I'm bawling like a calf. Can you handle that? I said, I'll take care of it. Just tell your mother I'll sit in the family pew. Tell your mother to sit next to the aisle. And so, Laura sat next to the aisle. George was next to her, and I was alongside George. The first thing I did was get a grip on his fingers. Where you bend that last digit. Extremely. It's very painful. I got a good grip on his hand. And as the wedding proceeded, I saw tears come in George's eyes, and his facial muscles quiver. I squeezed. Pain look appeared, and an angry look. Our eyes went off without any crying on George's part. After the wedding, I said, George, now for the reception in the churchyard. Shall we walk around hand in hand, or do you think you can manage it? He said, I think I can manage it. He walked around separately. And Carol was very happy about her church wedding and her reception. There's one bit more. Laura wanted a house built at Apache Junction where she could enjoy the mountain scenery. George has a telephone line like mine's and well drilled. And they drew up plans of the house, started building the house. The house was built completely. And it came to me on March and said, I don't want to tell you this. I owe it to you, I ought to. I've got a bladder pain. And all right, George, describe your bladder pain. He did so with absolute accuracy. I said, George, you know what that means as well as I do. Let's hope it's a benign tumor on the prostate. I think it's malignant. I want you to go to a urologist here and have a definite diagnosis made in preparation for surgery. I just said, this concerns only me, and I won't go. And George, it does concern only you. It really concerns your wife and daughter. And I think you ought to go. George says, this is one decision I'm going to make. I think you were right in everything else you made me do. And this is my trouble. I begged and pleaded with him. Around July 1st, I got him to agree to see a doctor, but not in Phoenix. I said, where then? He named a lot of places, and I said, yes, they're all good. Which one? He finally said Mayo's. How do you want to travel there? Not by air. I don't like airplane travel. I would prefer to go by bus. I said, bus? That makes too many stops, and you might get off. I vote for a train that makes fewer stops. You're less likely to get off. Now make sure of that. You want to go alone, or shall I send half a dozen pretty nurses with you? Make sure you get to Mayo's. He said, I'll take the train. I won't get off. I'll go to Mayo's. I said, give me a call when you're at Mayo's. I found out that he took the train to Chicago and a plane to Mayo's. He called me, said he's enrolled at Mayo's. I called back later and asked Mayo's if he was there. He was. They examined him, rushed him to the operating room, operated, and when he recovered from the anesthetic, they said, Doctor, you come in 2 months earlier. You could have saved your life. And you now have a study of that into your hip bones and your spine. Probably have about 2 years left to live. So live it up. Nurse came back and told me what they said. And all right, George, do you agree to live it up? He said yes. And checked with his daughter and his wife. What else did they want? They wanted a free cello concert, for one thing. And George gave them the cello concert because I demanded it. Later, he gave them more than one cello concert without being asked to by me. And kept checking on the building of the house. Very pleased with it. And before the house was completely finished, he was on a deathbed for about a month. I went over to see him one day, just a few days before his death. I walked in the room. He had a practical nurse looking after him. The practical nurse looked up, recognized him, and said, yeah, Dr. Erickson, I don't want to remain in any room with you. He walked out. I told George not to worry. The practical nurse had what she thought was good reason, and I sympathized with her.